Feels like it's hitting, like it's bottoming out hard on something.
So, I'm sure you guys saw me struggling there to get the oil pump in.
Let's go pour some oil in the pan. All right, so got my remote switch hooked up. Valve cover is off. Let's crank this thing over and see if the oil coming up through the head. What's going on, guys? Welcome back to the channel. So in my last video, I replaced the rear main seal on my D100 shop truck project. And once I got everything back together, I disconnected the fuel and the ignition so I could crank the engine over to verify oil pressure. Nothing. And I hated to leave the video unfinished like that. So I tore everything back apart to try to figure out why I had no oil pressure. And the only thing that I could determine was the gasket for the oil pump. I don't see anything wrong with the gasket, so I don't know why this may have failed or why the oil pump failed to seal against the bottom of the block. But it's the only thing I can think of. Now, in order to replace this, you can't just buy this gasket, at least not that I've been able to find. In order to get one, you got to get a new oil pump. My oil pump is basically new. So I went to my local O'Reilly's, picked up a roll of the thinnest gasket material that I could find, and cut my own gasket. So I'm going to get ready to install this back on the pump, get the pump back in the truck, and get everything back together. But I thought I'd show you guys real quick before I do that I can verify that my pump is good very, very simply. All right, so here I got the oil pump in the pan, basically how it would sit. I mean, it's just, everything's just kind of balanced here right now. And I've got just enough oil in the bottom of the pan here for the pickup to sit in. So what I did was I got, the power drill, got a Allen head attachment that fits right in the top of the pump. Now this is where the shaft comes down from the block, where the gear driven by the cam comes into the top of the oil pump. The top of that gear is where your distributor mounts. So that gear comes down, lines up with the pump. Now I can crank this over, try to get a shot and see if I can get oil pumping up out of here. I guess I shouldn't have used an impact, but as you can see, it pumps oil. So I know my pump is good. So now I'm gonna clean this up and get it back into the truck. All right, so installing the oil pump is pretty straightforward. It mounts to this mounting surface right here on the rear main cap. Here's the shaft that comes down and drives the oil pump. And then, yeah, it just mounts right here. So I'm gonna, obviously new gasket. So, I'm gonna run the bolts in. I'm gonna use some medium Loctite, and they get torqued to 30 foot-pounds. Just like that. Actually, I got it backwards. So it goes up just like this. Now you can't really screw this up too much. I mean, like I said, the pickup is right here. If the pickup's not lined up, it's not going to seat. You just gotta get that hex pickup lined up with the pump. For some reason the shaft doesn't feel like it really wants to line up quite right. It's not pulling it up all the way up in there. Feels like it's hitting, like it's bottoming out hard on something.
All right, so I'm sure you guys saw me struggling there to get the oil pump in. It felt like it was hitting a hard stop. I don't know if I damaged this driving the pump with the impact, or, I mean, I don't remember dropping this thing, but yeah, that is a damaged input where the gear drive goes in for the pump. I mean, that thing is not round anymore. Looks like it's kind of mushroomed there a little bit. So yeah, I get to get a new oil pump. I mean, this is a new oil pump. I get to get another new oil pump. Honestly, I don't think it was the impact. That thing looks like it was dropped and cracked. I mean, you can see cracks that are on the outer surface. The inside is just like in pieces. Look at that. Yeah, I don't know. I honestly don't know. So I've got a pump on order. So when that gets here, I'll prime it without the impact, just to be on the safe side, and then get it installed. Yeah, the hits just keep on coming. All right, new pump has come in. Got the pickup tube moved over. It's back in the pan. I'm ready to prime the pump. So I've got my Allen head on a drill this time, not an impact. Let's prime the pump. I don't know if there's just not enough oil in there. Let's go pour some oil in the pan. All right, I got some more oil in the pan. I'm gonna go ahead and try priming the pump again. And there we go. See, the pump picked up the oil in the pan. So it should be ready to clean up the mounting surface, get this thing installed. All right, so we're back under the truck. Here we go with another attempt to get the pump installed. So again, nice new gasket. Pump should go on, no issue. There you go. Oh yeah, much better. Went up nice and flat, sitting nice and flush. Get the bolt started. Try to anyway. First bolt is started in there. Again, these have just medium strength Loctite on them. Nothing too crazy. The second bolt is started. When installing it, when tightening everything down, you got to make sure it stays nice and flush up against the mounting surface and whatchamacallit, where the shaft comes in that actually turns the pump. Got to make sure that stays up inside the hole. Make sure everything just stays the way it's supposed to seat. And I'm just going to run these up by hand. I'm going to let it hang right now. Just going to run them up a little bit at a time, not using any kind of tool on it, just turning it by hand. As they get close, I'll make sure everything goes in nice and straight, just the way it should. See, right now it's a little cockeyed, so I'm going to back it off. There we go. Try to hold it in place there. Try not to drop sockets and extensions on my head. That one bolt is snug. Double check the mount, or double check where the shaft comes into the pump. Make sure that's nice and seated up in there, flush. It is. All right, and then we just tighten it down. I'll get a torque wrench and torque these down to 30 foot-pounds. I haven't torqued it yet. I'm just kind of snugging them down a little bit at a time. Like I said, making sure nothing gets into a bind. 30 foot-pounds is not a whole lot, so there we go. Oil pump is back in, torque down. Should be ready for the pan at this point. All right, so the oil pan's tightened down, filled up.
I've got the starter back in so I can crank this thing. I still have the fuel disconnected. I have the coil disconnected so it doesn't try to start. I still have the valve cover off. So what I'm gonna do, I'm gonna crank this thing, make sure I got oil coming up to the head, and then we'll check inside for pressure. I have to have a charger hooked up because messing with this thing the other day, my battery is pretty much done right now. So I'm gonna move you over here. We'll take a look at the head first, make sure we got oil coming up through the head. All right, so got my remote switch hooked up. Valve cover is off. Let's crank this thing over and see if the oil coming up through the head. There it is. You can see the oil coming up. See it? You can see it filling up in there also. Now that looks good. I can go in the cab, turn the ignition on, just to get power to the gauges, and make sure I got good pressure. All right, so we'll turn the ignition on. Like I said, everything is still disconnected. There you can see the oil pressure gauge. Sniper is powered up. Not that that really matters. Let's see if I can grab my remote switch here. And let's crank it. And oil pressure does register, so that's good. But as long as I got pressure showing on the gauge, I am good with that. So I'm gonna go ahead and let my battery charge, start buttoning everything back up, and then hopefully start this thing up and see how she does. All right, so ran this thing up. Got up the temperature, a good oil pressure the whole time, no leaks. Hopefully it'll stay that way. So I should be ready to get everything cleaned up, get this thing back on the ground, and start driving it. Appreciate you for watching. Hit that subscribe, hit the bell. I'll see you on the next one.